I see Lauren over there. How you doing, Lauren? Hey, Lauren, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Not,
Awesome.
I've lost you. I'm still trying to figure out how this thing works. I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. Um,
Hmm.
can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. I
Excellent.
just can't, I can see you, but I can't see me.
Aha, yes. There might be something at the bottom that says you. What device are you on?
A Mac computer.
A computer. Okay. So there may be something at the bottom of the screen that lets you toggle your camera on or
Oh,
off. You may have to give it permissions.
okay.
Um,
Chat, Q&A, lower hand. All right, I'll put my hand down, whatever that was.
I don't know if I'm allowed to. It's possible that in this webinar setting, it won't let you.
Do that? Okay, that's
Yeah, it
fine.
won't let you do the piece. I'm not sure. Um,
Either way, as long as you can hear me and see me, I'll sit quiet.
no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, well, so I only sent out about 10 invitations. So I'm not sure how many people are going to show up even, but they
Okay.
did. Some people did send me some stuff in the meantime. So I'm going to do a little bit of a talk, like a 5-minute, 10-minute talk about the season stuff.
Okay.
And then we can talk a little bit about your season
Oh,
if you're up for it.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. We can
Sure.
kind of dive through that and see how that works and see what we can do. Um, okay, all right, awesome. So I'm going to go back to talking. I'm trying to find the right view. Speaker, panelists. Okay, there we go. View. Hold on a second.
So that isn't your background?
No, it's not. I've got a screen going.
Oh, that's cool.
Sometimes I put in other stuff. I get all dorky and I put in something from like a race that I went to or something like that. You gotta have fun in these meetings, right? Like it can get super boring.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know. So, all right, here we go. Phone speaker. There we are. Okay, hold on. All right, I'm just gonna mute you while I do the presentation part of it, if that's all right. I think you
Yeah.
probably can unmute yourself, but just you can if I forget to unmute you later, raise your hand again.
Okay.
That's the best way forward. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. Good. There's a chat. Okay. We will do this. Make sure I'm good. Okay, folks, Coach Patrick here. I want to welcome you to a season planning workshop. This is a chance for us to work in a more intimate setting, conversational style, to talk through what a season looks like. For those of you on the team, you know that a large part of what I do is not just the day-to-day support when people have questions and creating the content, but it's also giving some context to the season, right? How do we get from where we are now at this time of year to your race, whether it's 3 months or 6 months? How do we incorporate other events? How do we account for injuries or challenges? 2020 last year was full of challenges. So it was a great deal of work that was going in that space to really make sure they put all the pieces of the puzzle together. I'm hopeful that heading into 2021, we'll have a little bit more flexibility, but people are starting in a very different place than where they would have been otherwise, coming off a year without traditional races. So it's worth some time to spend thinking about what it means to construct a season based off of where we are now. And as athletes, and quite frankly, just as humans, we generally start with the place that's most familiar with us, even if that's not where we are right now, right? So we go back to that, like, oh yeah, when I'm in January, these are the things I do. When I'm in February, I do this. And then in March, I go there and do that. All those rules don't necessarily apply right now because we're certainly not starting in the same place. And also, we may not have the fitness we need to do the activity we normally do in March, or the thing we normally do in March may not be there for us to do this year in March. So it definitely is a little bit disruptive. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we do the season planning piece here before we dive over. I know we have Lauren joining us here tonight. as sort of a conversational piece. She's willing to share out with you guys a little bit as we work through her season. But before we get there, I did want to talk a little bit about managing your season right now with the level of uncertainty that we have. So we're just not sure if races are going to happen or if they're not going to happen. I believe, and this is just one person's opinion, that as we go throughout the season, the closer we get to June and then beyond, I believe, levels of vaccination will hopefully be in place that allow travel to happen, that allow certain destinations to become safer and more open, and that ultimately will have some kind of a slow roll to a place where in the second half of the year, we'll be experiencing and participating in events that really remind us or are very close to what we've experienced in the past. Anything that happens early in the year, I would call very 50-50. So if you plan for a March event, I would call that right now very 50-50. And so they're still important for us to train to these early season events, to use them as targets, as milestones. But it may well be that for those events that happen before June or scheduled before June, that we're going to have to really, be prepared to do something on our own or be creative in a way that allows us to stay motivated, have fun, build fitness. And then when we do get to a place when we know our later season races and events are happening, that we're actually positioned well enough to be successful at the level that we want. There are very few athletes. If I took a survey of 100 athletes, there are very few of them that are training at the level that they would normally otherwise be, given everything that's happened. And that's just understandable. So I do want to caution people as you set goals for the season, as you plan objectively for what your year is going to look like, that you give yourself a little bit of a break, right? That you just say, normally, let's say your target for success is when I run, 27 and a half miles a week, I am rocking and rolling. It may well be that this year that might be 24 and a half. It may well be that we can run those miles that you want, but not for like another month later than normal. Just because there's a great deal of stress in our lives dealing with stuff at home, stuff at work, social, emotional stuff that's happening. And it definitely manifests itself in the training. So some people, mostly introverted people I've seen here inside the team and working with athletes, have been very successful at focusing internally and doing the things they need to do to be successful, whether it's with work or family, with training, etc. But the people who are externally focused, who either interact because they have to through work or because that's how they're oriented, from a personality perspective, those folks have really struggled because lots of pieces of that world have been disrupted. And that could also mean that your training itself has been disrupted, from groups that you've typically worked with to experiences you've done or partners you normally train and eventually race with. A lot of that is kind of mixed up. So do yourself a favor, take a breath. So if something doesn't go right, just take a breath, like do something, right? So if you can't do your workout plan for the day, but you can go run a mile, go run a mile. Like that's awesome. Normally I'd say you're fitter than most people. If you are able to run a mile when you don't want to run a mile these days, you're one of the tippy top people on the list. It doesn't feel like it. But a lot of people, aren't even leaving their houses these days. I think that exercise is important, not only for a schedule, but for your health as well, both physical and mental. I think it's important for us to be running. You can't really read a phone and run at the same time. You need to get away from technology, take a break. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen really quickly here. And we're going to go over and just take a quick look at some of the season training stuff that we normally do when we're working across the course of a year. And this is important for us simply because I want to add some context to what it means to be, successful as we go forward. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share this up. Oh no, hold on a second. Hold on, I think I shared the wrong thing. Hold on a second. Share the screen, share the Chrome, share it up. There we go. Okay, sharing the Chrome. All right, excellent. So on the Induranciation website, if you go to the process section, and here you'll see the EN roadmap below. I'm pretty sure I clicked on the wrong thing. Hold on. I clicked on our event for this time, which is fine. So here we are, EN roadmap. If you go there, this is a multi-step process that breaks down for you how we work across a year and how we work across a season. Pretty straightforward stuff. And when I think about being successful over the course of a year, there's a couple of key pieces that go into place. And we sort of have them outlined here from a team perspective, integration with the team and so on. But this next piece here is the really relevant one for our presentation here, which is how we move across a season. Okay. So the way that we work is we get started with our planning and preparation, which is partly what we're doing here today, mapping out what a season looks like, talking a little bit about the parts, setting out expectations, start end times for workouts and focuses for a season, not just as rigid things that on May 17th at 9 a.m. I'm gonna do this workout, but more I get this work done, and when this work is done, then I move to the next block, right? Adding some context, almost like planning a book, right? Like we're not gonna write the end first. We got to start in the beginning. We got to build up, get all the way through it, and then write that end when it matters. Okay. So we move from the preparation, the planning part to our out season, which is happening right now for folks in January out season. That's when we build really critical fitness using intensity, driving the volume down, staying healthy, being strong. Essentially, by the end of the out season, regaining our fitness, our peak fitness from last year without all that volume in our body. We exit that into our specificity phase. This is a nice optional period. Not everyone has time in their year, but if you do, the specificity phase is great because we'll dial in on the sport that's going to make the biggest impact for you. So if you're a multi-sport athlete, it could be the bike, maybe it's the run. If you're a long distance runner, it could be a different distance or a different training modality that's going to really sort of set you up for the next level. So if you're training for a 100-mile race, we're not just going to run long every single day, every day of the week, all year long. We need variety in your training and so on. And so this is the time where we get really specific. It's typically like a 6-week period. And this is the time when we encourage athletes to really own that space, right? For 6 weeks, you are this person. So multi-sport athletes might say for 6 weeks, you are a cyclist. For someone who, is riding and transitioning to gravel and they're getting outside, we may say for 6 weeks, you're going to embrace your dirt loving trail seeking self. We're going to turn off Zwift and like hide the pieces of it, so you have to ride outside, right? So we'll challenge you in this block to build skills as well as fitness before we move on to the next phase, which is our race phase. At that point in time, we're taking the fitness that you built early in the season, that you transitioned through your specificity, and now we're adding volume to it and race specific work. At this point in time, we're doing things like race rehearsal workouts, planning race nutrition, testing all of that against your actual ability to execute, and then creating a race plan, racing, capturing all that information, and so on. So there's a great deal that happens in the race period, and everyone focuses on the race period, but we get there by moving across an entire season and being successful. Okay. And then from there, we move into our recovery phase. And for some people, recovery, depending on who you are and your type A-ness, for some people, an Ironman recovery from an Ironman season is doing a marathon. For some of you who do 100-mile races, recovery might be doing a marathon or like 7 marathons in 7 days or something. I do hope that somewhere in there you find time to actually recover. Use your fitness to do something fun. Use your fitness to go on a huge, massive hike. Get out and explore again. Hopefully, by the end of the season, we'll be in a place where we can do just that here and do it safely. But the point being that we can't be all work, no play. The end of the season is a great time to capitalize on some of that and turn it into a positive for you. You may have another race. You can bounce back and forth between races. But the idea being that we do end the season with a little bit of a high note and a little bit of rest, right? And then we transition into preparation. So we basically work across the season, and then we come back, we review it, and we go back and forth, right? So you can come anytime to this roadmap page, endurancenation.us/roadmap. You can click on any of these links and watch the video for each one. You can even go through all the other stuff we have as well. But this really is the season progression that we work through. So right now, many athletes are sort of in this out season period, but we're still talking a little bit about that preparation side, because what do you do with the out season? What do you do with those out season results? Where do you take them? It's really important. And we want to find a way for us to be successful, and we get successful as endurance athletes by building context and working across the course of a year. Just like as a weightlifter, if you want to increase your bench press by 25 pounds, we don't just go to the gym the day after you come up with your goal and put 25 pounds on there and just lift it. We actually have to have a plan, and we have to build. We have to, add progressive work. We have to recover, let our body adapt, go back, do it again, and build up. And so too do we do that here inside Endurance Nation in the context of your season. We simply work in these discrete blocks as an opportunity for you to stay focused, have short-term goals that really set you up to be successful, and let you deal on with the things that really matter. It allows us to also eliminate a lot of the stuff that we don't need. So in other programs, you'll see people in the winter doing really, really long swims or really, really long bikes. Can you do those things? Sure. Could they help you for the race? Sure. Is it the best use of your time? I don't know. Maybe you have 5 hours on a Saturday that you like riding and sprinting every time like a Flowbee commercial comes on. I don't. I want to be off my bike in 2 hours, 2.5 hours, maybe 3 max, so I can get on with my day and do all sorts of other stuff here in the wintertime. And that's how we operate inside Nurse Nation, which is making sure that you're making the most of your time. So you hit those 12 weeks ready to go. You're fresh, you're smarter, and you're ready to attack those last 12 weeks to your race and be as successful as possible. Okay. So with that said, I am going to go back to Lauren here. I'm gonna ask to unmute you, Lauren. Hopefully that allows you to unmute yourself. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Excellent. You are back. Excellent. All right. So I know we have you voice only. Those of you at home who are wondering. So we are voice only with Lauren, which is totally fine. So with that said, why don't you, can you give us a little context, like, who you are, what your sport focus is, and then what your big race is? That would be awesome.
Okay. My name is Lauren, and I am looking at racing Ironman back into the fold in the year 2021. I have Texas Ironman on the schedule, but because I'm just getting over COVID, and I've gone through a lot of deaths in the family, so I've had to travel a lot. So I'm just now coming back.
Okay.
And I've got 13 weeks till Texas Ironman, and I'm not really sure I'm ready. I mean, yeah, I can suffer, but I don't think I want to suffer. So
Yeah.
I'm looking, maybe I could move that race to Ironman Chattanooga. That's in September. My husband's all up for that because he's doing Kona with you guys.
Right.
So he would love for me to change over to Chattanooga.
Okay.
So I'm a little, I don't know what to do. I mean, I am training, I'm following the plan as of January 1st. So there was plenty of plan that I have not put in place. So I'm now questioning, what should I do?
How, like, in terms of your training, how consistent have you been? Like, what's your fitness look like right now?
It's
obviously because you're coming off COVID, you know what I mean? That's a big
I'm about
factor,
50% where I think I should be. 50%. So my FTP, I've tested twice. I've done a 5K over the weekend, personal 5K. I've done the testing, but nothing seems to look great. So I'm a little bit like, maybe I'm too far behind.
Right. That's a great point. And honestly, like I talk about the struggles that we have, like people, taking care of yourself and the social emotional stuff. But there's many folks just like you who are coming off of COVID and are, physically impacted by, what's happening, and that's, that's no small feat. Like at the end of the day, that's a real thing to be, kind of focused on, right? And say like, hey, how am I going to come out of this and be healthy? And that, from a macro perspective, the last thing we want to do is make decisions that are going to negatively impact you, right?
Yes.
They're going to put you in a position where we actually walk you backwards, rather than bringing you forward. It's like ultimately at the end of the day, 2021 is going to be what it is. Like we're going to train, hopefully we're going to race, we're going to do the best we can. But it's, to me, in many ways, we're kind of rebounding, right? Like hopefully, by the time we hit next year, it's like, ooh, we're all firing all cylinders. Everything's great. So whatever we can get out of this year is great. Try to minimize that damage. In terms of when we talk about being at 50%, do you have any like residual issues or things that are, kind of coming out from training, like in terms of like high heart rate or excessive fatigue or anything else that's, something we should be, aware of?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Other than low FTP and low miles when I run. And I've gotten a pool for swim camp and I tried it and I'm doing fine, but I'm just not where I think I should be.
Okay. Yeah.
So no true physical remnants that I'm noticing at all.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's like a huge positive step, right? So we know that like, hey, we're really just looking at many numbers. I, I want to see the nurse who's like, doctor, she's concerned about her FTP. What is FTP? I don't understand what she's talking about. Cholesterol's fine. Her heart rate's fine. Blood pressure is looking great. Systolic, everything's fine. What's this FTP?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I could just see that now. Be like, what? Um, they'll remember. They'll be like, no, you remember? She's the lady who had the broken knee and was like, I'm still gonna run. You
Yeah.
remember her? Like, oh yeah, I remember her. She's crazy. You're just part of the tribe. So okay, so from a huge big piece of the puzzle, like I think driving this. So there's two factors that weigh on my mind. First is just what is the reality around Texas, right? Like what is Texas going to look like as an event? What does it mean to be there and race? If we saw anything from Florida, Ironman's able to put on an event for sure, but it's not anything like a race that we would otherwise recognize, right? People are swimming, biking, and running, but that's about it, right? And there's modifications to the course in terms of aid stations because they don't have as many volunteers, all sorts of things that happen. I hope that the race goes off, but I know that it is early, and we think about what that means for the year. It does, really compress your training in a way that's challenging. So on a normal year, when someone's going into Texas, I'm talking to them in December, like, are you sure, right? Like this is what you want to do, because we're basically taking next year and pushing it right into this year. It doesn't even, we just kind of roll right over. There's not like other people turn the calendar and like shoot confetti, and we don't, because we're training because we're getting ready for the next piece. So having, the normal disruptions of life and then having this as well, I think is really good, putting you in a position where, can you do it if it happens and then cross that finish line? Well, I have no doubt, like you're super mentally strong. Is it going to be something that you're, having fun doing or proud of? Likely not. I would give that like a 60% chance of happening, just because so much has to go right. And if recent history has been any guide, not a lot of things have gone right. Like I feel like it's like, oh wow, we could, it's like, jumping your bike off of a ramp. It's like I could make it or I could not make it. I feel like in recent times, like only one person makes it. The other 9 people don't make the jump across the ramp. Whereas in other years, it's 50-50. You might make it. I just don't think that fortune is on our side in terms of all the things that could potentially go wrong. So in my mind, I would recommend, if you're able to push it back a little bit later. It dramatically increases your ability to race, but it does change the terrain, which is the condition we haven't spoken about, right? So, Chattanooga is a hillier race for sure, and brings its own set of challenges relative to Texas. It's a much more friendly swim course, so that's certainly more enjoyable, right?
Right.
But you pay the price, with the hilly back half of the bike course, and then the run itself is hilly as well. Can you remind me what your experience is like on other courses like that?
Yes, I have done Texas and I have done Chattanooga, and I've done them
Okay.
back to back.
Okay.
Mostly Texas in the spring and or April, Chattanooga in September. I've done Wisconsin. I've done Lake
Okay.
Placid a few times, Penticton when it was. Now it's back.
Now it's back.
Um,
It was,
yeah.
it was here, then it was gone. Okay.
So those are the races that I have done, and I've done
Okay.
them multiple times. So I'm familiar with Chattanooga very much. Yeah. It's
Okay.
hot. That's the only thing. But I live in SoCal, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always hot here. I mean, we just
Yes.
had a 90-degree day in January.
Oh my
So
God.
it's hot.
Oh my
So the
God.
training isn't that bad. I can do the training.
Mm-hmm.
And the course, I know where to stay at Chattanooga. I know where to fly into.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it. So
Okay.
it's not something that I'm not unfamiliar with.
Okay. How did your race experience in Chattanooga compare to those other
Mm.
venues for you?
The last time I did it was 2019 was Chattanooga.
Okay.
Chattanooga was excruciating hot. I mean, it was unbearable. So I
Yeah.
just dialed it back, and believe it or not, just by dialing it back, other people just went out too hard and blew
Mm-hmm.
themselves up. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked great. I got my AWA status from that race
Woo!
just because everybody else probably wasn't, they had more on the line or they put more into it. I don't know. I just
Hmm.
knew to pull it back and it's okay.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well,
Did
it was
well.
crazy hot. Good
Yeah.
for you. That's awesome. I mean, that's always, for me that like, okay, it's like, all right, I feel good about that because you know how to execute, you're familiar with the conditions, you know the course. It's certainly, I think for people who are new to the course, it's not your average race
No.
in terms of not just the temperature, but the combination of the temperature with the heat. And there's also very little shade out there.
Yeah.
Which I think is surprising because you look around, you're like, you see all these trees and you're like, could any of the trees just please come to the road? Like, could you
Yeah.
please cover the road? No, nothing. Okay, nothing. All right. So, I mean, given your experience on the course, I think it really sets you up well for not only being healthy, but also potentially having another leg up on the competition. Like, not very many people are going to be, I think, uh, racing well this year. And you'll have your fitness back by then, hopefully, and then also your experience as well is just such an advantage on that course. Um, I think you could really do well inside the results, comparably speaking. The key is when we change it up like this, then it's like, ooh, not that you have a problem with this, but for most people, it'd be like, what do I do now for like the next 3 months,
Well,
right? Like, go
kind of.
ahead.
I'm all for, hey, I just need more ramp up time. I really
Right.
do. And I feel it would be a good thing to have more ramp up time
Hmm.
getting into it. And I'm happy. I just love to train. I hate to race. Love to
Okay.
train. As long as everything's firing, I would rather sit on a trainer all day long than go out there and race.
Okay.
So I'd prefer to train.
Okay.
My
Excellent.
only concern is this. This is where I get like a little bit itchy, scared.
Okay.
I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. I mean, I'm putting it out there that I am going to race this rather than, hey, I'm going out to have a great day in the state of Tennessee and noodle around and
Hmm.
have a good time. I'm going to actually end up racing it like cuz
Hmm.
I feel good. I don't know. I just got to learn to take that mental side off, the pressure
Hmm.
off racing and
Hmm. Hmm.
more enjoy it. Hold back,
Hmm.
push hard. I don't know. I have a hard time trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
I mean, that's a great point, right? Uh, it's the pressure is real, right?
Yeah.
To do that, but at the same time, I think that's part of the progression, right?
Yeah.
So, like as you move down the spectrum of becoming, more experienced and more confident in your own abilities, and you have experience on that course, right? You earned your AWA status on the course. I think it's only natural um, that sometimes the pressure will come with that. Not even you may feel the pressure yourself, but like, just the day you finally get it all together, you're like, no, it's okay. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be Lauren. We get out there and do what Lauren does, and it's going to be great. And like, one of your friends will say something like, well, you like look at those legs. Like you should win this thing. Like, isn't that lady right there in your age group? You're going to crush her. And you're like,
Yes.
really?
Yes. And I
You're
have this
the
brand new bitchin' bike, if I can say.
yes.
It is
Totally.
so cool. And I'm like, look, I liked racing on an old school bike because you could take a trail and nobody would look at you. You could
Yes.
sneak by them and they're like,
Right,
what?
right.
Yeah.
And now you're like, what's going to happen? Yeah, no, I think having more time and having the ramp is fine. I think so, in this case, you could kind of, run through the early part of the season regardless. And we get to, I mean, it's already warm out there.
Yeah.
I am telling people, putting in like every 6 weeks or so, kind of turning off the normal weekend and going out and having some fun, like, doing whether it's a fun bike ride you like to do or, doing something a little bit different, like, a big hike or, something that gets you outdoors, has you being active, um, you know, uh, not like an athletic vacation, if you will, that kind of allows us to then, by like April, May, we start doing some longer stuff. I think for you, it's really just building that strength now, like we'd like to do early in the season and the out season, getting that FTP back up. So doing the math on your gap, right? So, if your FTP is, at 100% and you're currently at like 80%, mapping it out and saying, okay, in 6 weeks, I'm going to be at 85%. what am I going to do between now and 85%? And then we get you there. And then we say, okay, now I'm going to get to 90%. And we just take it increment by increment with some short-term goals that keep you really focused, so that we can kind of get you back. So when we hit April-ish, your FTP's back, the run's feeling good. And then we can say, all right, now we've got options, right? And then we can start having some fun outside with the bike and, getting comfortable, start working on the nutrition piece, all those parts of the puzzle, and stuff like that. Do you have plans to do some cycling things this summer or so on?
No, I just sit on the trainer, my tax trainer with Zwift, and ride away.
Just pedal, pedal, pedal.
Pedal, pedal, pedal.
Awesome. Well, we are, this year we'll definitely once again do Ultra May, which is our sort of 48-hour challenge. We're going to do some other versions of it, like a 24-hour challenge. But there'll be other stuff in February and March that we're going to announce shortly. That'll be some ways to challenge you outside of, just, log in, do a ride, do a workout, and get a little bit of early season volume in. That should be fun. It should be, a little different for you and kind of keep you going. Yeah, I'm not worried about you training, in a normal year, folks like you, I'm worried about overdoing it. Like, I'm like, we may not make it to September because you're going to be so, either exhausted or not. Right. Exactly. So I think that piece is important. I mentioned that sort of like every 6 weeks, kind of disrupt things for a bit. It's super hard for athletes to do that because we just want to hit the workout and do the thing. But I just believe that if we're going to sustain ourselves for a year, I feel like, now January to September, people say it's 8 months, 1 + 8, it's 9. So, September, here we go. I really feel like it's almost worth like 150% of that. I really feel like it's actually a year. Like it's going to feel like a year, and we have to just plan accordingly to just take a break. Whether it's, you two decide to go and just take a weekend off and be like, we're going to go just, I don't know, go somewhere else, hang out, do something different. Like I said, you be outside, be active, but, not, do the normal weekend craziness just so you can kind of reset before you come back. I think that'll be a worthwhile investment. So that when we get to, essentially for Chattanooga, we're looking at early July is kind of the time when we say, July 4th comes around, we're locked in and we're going to kind of build this engine all the way through. Then things get a little tighter. So we want to, make sure we've had our fun and we're feeling healthy and good to go by the time we get there. Yeah.
Okay. Great. But there was also, you had Best Bike Camp.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly what that was, but it sounded interesting.
Right. Oh, yes. I can certainly talk about that real quickly. It's basically it's a program. It was 4 weeks. Now we've kind of expanded it a little bit, so it's a little longer. But basically we incorporate this testing protocol from a program called Inside. They work with professional cycling teams and elite triathletes to do this assessment. We get some numbers out of where you're at, like your VO2 and your FTP, but also some other metrics that are a little different, a little unique and really helpful. And then we can actually take those numbers and do some projections, right? So we can say, hey, if we get your FTP up by 10 points, or if we move your VO2 by 3 points, what does that do for the rest of your fitness? And we can map it out and show with the data what Lauren looks like with 15 watts higher, right? What does it mean for your nutrition? What does it mean calorically for your burn rate? What does it mean for your pacing? Can you sustain this for this time or not? And what's the best way to get there? Is volume the answer for you? Is hard work the answer? What does it look like? And then we take that information and we put it in a report so you get it, but we also create a 12-week plan. So in your case, being on the team, it would be a 12-week plan that we sort of overlay on top of your regular training with specific workouts. We've got a library of like 150, I think now, Zwift workouts. So you would be able to go in and we'd say, hey, week 1, you're going to go over here and pick up this workout. This one you're going to do. So you download the workouts, put them in your Zwift. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, these are the workouts you're doing. And we track you through that 12-week program according to what we got out of that data. Okay. And then get you out. So it's in a way, I kind of look at it as taking like a season of bike development and like cramming it into 12 weeks. And we've had some really good success for folks on the team. Obviously, people weren't doing a lot of other things. So in a normal year, they might've been distracted or disrupted and they were like, hey, this is awesome. So we're going to have a I think I was talking with Matt, who partners with me on that. I think we're going to have another class in February. So I'll be putting up some information about that soon. So you'll see it
Okay.
come out if you're interested. Yeah.
So then
Um,
the other idea then, since we have so much time,
mhm.
a bit of time, is to work on body composition. I mean,
Mm,
that I'd love to lose 10 to 15 pounds. Being
okay.
menopausal, it's a
Mm,
lot harder than I used to remember.
mm.
Lord.
Oh my God.
And I track my food, I do everything I can, but it
Oh yeah.
is a slow process. So then
Oh
I'm
my
thinking
God.
maybe this is a good time to focus more on body comp as well.
Totally. Yes. So we've had some athletes. I actually just did a podcast with Brad Klein, who's on the team. He's obviously men and women nutrition completely different, um, but we do recommend that depending where you're at, and you're certainly not someone who's in a dangerous place with your body composition. Could
Yeah,
you be
no.
skinnier? Yes, but you're not. You're
No.
not someone who someone says, "Hey, that person needs to work." So I think in his case, that's what he exactly did. He spent like 2 or 3 months at the beginning of the year. He really took his exercise intensity down so he could be, more aerobic. He could lift some more weights. He could really manage his diet without the stress of the training being too high. He
Yeah.
kind of, get set. And when we talked just a couple of weeks ago, he was in the process of sort of like extracting himself from that and getting back to more traditional training now that he, kind of brought his weight down to where he wanted to be. So that's certainly another option that we could talk about is, how much time do we think that would take? Let's block that out. What would the work look like during that time to support you again? And then, then we say, oh, great. And once we've checked that box, or if it's not, 7 pounds you lose, or, we get you as close as we can. And then we say, okay, we can stabilize here and then move on to the next phase of your training as well. That's always fun. I love projects. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's
yeah.
doable. It's very doable. And if that's the case, it fits in better with Chattanooga. There's
Oh,
no
totally.
way I can lose anything realistically for Texas in 13
Hmm.
weeks if the
Oh my
training,
God.
it's
No,
not going to be smart. And I know that.
no, it's not going to fly. And yeah, I think so much about long course nutrition and is also about healthy habits. And so when we have to fast track the training to get you ready, that also opens the door for lots of, not that people would, I'm not saying, um, like one way to fast track your training would be to cheat, right? For people to dope. Most people don't do that, but they'll cheat somewhere else. So they'll be like, I'm going to be awesome with my training. I'm going to nail these workouts. But because I'm cramming so much work into my week, now when I go to work, for example, and I sit at my desk, I'm falling asleep. So I'm just going to drink like 6 cans of Diet Coke a day to keep me awake for this training that I'm doing. And
Oh,
they're, metabolically cheating, right? They're consuming stuff that's helping them do the work, but there's a sacrifice for doing it. So when we expand the timeline for you and we have 8 months, we can do the work, we can do it the right way, we can be healthy and deliberate, and then sort of incrementally move across the season in a way that makes sense. Um, it helps
sure.
you avoid some of those pitfalls.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then how do I go through and put it all onto a PMC, performance chart? Or
Right.
how do I do that?
Yeah, totally. So, typically what I'll do is I'll sketch out the big pieces first. So
Okay.
we can sit down and say, you know what, if the body composition, this thing you want, we can sort of figure out what those puzzle pieces look like, either, in the community space, or we can do it on the phone and kind of map out here are the different chunks. So this is what we want to do where. And then we take that and then build that into the plan for you, and depends, where you work, if it's something that you want to model out for the entire year, that's a bit time intensive, so we have to figure what that looks like. But if it's also just saying, okay, I get the pieces of the puzzle, and typically I set milestones, and we say, by the time we get to here in June, this is body comp, this is run mileage, this is FTP, what's the next piece look like, and we kind of stack it like that. If anything, I set a lot of TSS goals for people. What's the target for your TSS per week? And that's a pretty easy metric for people to hit, to keep you on track as well. So,
Is TSS better than total hours a week?
um, I definitely look at both. I prefer TSS as a metric, not because TSS is the be all end all, but because it really quantifies the work you're doing. So, someone could train 8 hours in the winter versus 16 hours in the summer, but they could be doing a lot more work in the winter, and that's not reflected if we just say, oh, you only trained 8 hours. If you're training 8 hours, but like 90% of them are hard, and in the summertime you're training and only like 10% of those are hard, those are just different. They're different weeks, fundamentally different. So it's a different quantification.
Okay.
So when you look at something like Training Peaks, and you have a chance to look at your PMC, you can see what the TSS is really, those red dots sort of on that chart, right? Those maroon dots. That's another way to kind of sort of conceptualize where those cluster on the screen. Are they low, and it's typically like higher intensity stuff when it's low, unless it's recovery, or are the dots higher? So as you move across the season from left to right, typically in the winter, I see lots of low dots, like short, hard workouts or easy workouts. And then as we move across the season, those dots start to creep up. And there's even, 1 or 2 dots that are super high when we get to like, do a 6-hour bike ride, do a 2.5-hour run, or do a half Ironman. And we start looking at some of those elements. That's an appropriate transition of stress across a season.
Okay.
So I would consider both. For me, I'm old school. So I also just look at the distances covered. I kind of have some baselines, like I want to ride this much a week. I want to run this much a week. Like I kind of have like whether I hit it or not, that's my target, right? I earn my Zwift confetti or not.
True.
Yeah. So, but I do look at that TSS just to make sure. And that could be an easy snapshot look for you, just to see where you're at, but just to make sure that some people aren't overdoing it. Because we have people who can be successful early season, but the problem is they don't back off the intensity. They like it. They like going fast. They like doing these races, or they like doing these workouts, and they're transitioning outside. So now we're adding volume, and it doesn't look that different than what they were doing before from a time perspective. But the cost is too high. The allocation of effort is too great. And we end up being in a place where are they fit enough to do a race? Sure. But they're not fast. Like they don't have the depth. They haven't had a chance to really adapt to the longer stuff with the lower intensities, and, being really smart about it. So that's how I use it. So.
Okay. That makes
All
sense.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the question would be, do I need to, I've gone through, like you had on some of the previous podcasts, or videos,
Right.
to look at your Strava stuff.
Yeah.
Why Strava and not Training Peaks?
Oh, just for me, I picked Strava because I think a lot more people have it than Training Peaks. I
Okay.
didn't want to box people in to the
Okay.
product, but you could certainly, that's an exercise you could do at Training Peaks as well. So if you have that data there,
Okay.
that's great stuff to, if you want to send that over to me to put into your coach space, or to have it be a kickoff point, that's super great. Like it's always like, I'm such a visual person. You could tell me like down to the minute what you did for running in the last 6 months, and then you showed me a chart in like 10 seconds. I'd be like, I got it. I know exactly what you mean. Though not so much with the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have anything like that, that's super helpful. And kudos for you for doing it. It's such a great exercise to really reflect on what you did, which is great.
Okay.
All right. So we can, we have options. Like you can email that to me, or let me know, or on the site, like any of the red chat buttons at the bottom, and just, you can message in there, and you can attach stuff or send me stuff. I can organize it once I have it. And then we can start, to kind of brainstorm, well, what does a year to Chattanooga look like? What are the blocks that we have? I'll work backwards and say, we've got to, this much for race prep, this much for volume. What does it look like? And then we can decide now, early season, what do we want to do? What do we want to prioritize for you for training and, body comp or what have you? We can go from there.
Fabulous. Great.
All right.
Yeah. Sounds great to me. Hey, I got another question.
Yeah.
On Zwift, do you guys in the team, do you ride around in the jersey that you're wearing? I mean, do you have a kit for your avatar that's Ian?
Of course. Yes.
Well, how do you get that?
You must have an Endurance Nation kit.
I didn't know. How do you get one?
Sure. So if you go to the website, endurancenation.us, and then /Zwift, that has a bunch of information about all the things that we do on Zwift, including how to get the kit.
Okay.
So that's worth checking out. But so on the kit side, basically you just have to finish an Endurance Nation ride. So any ride that you do on Zwift for the team earns the kit.
Okay.
So we have the official rides are like,
Okay.
there's a Friday morning ride.
Okay.
I think it's 9 a.m. our time, so 6 a.m. yours, which is early.
Mhm.
There's there's two on Saturday. There's like a really early 6 a.m. and there's an 8 a.m. There's one on Sunday night and then Monday night. They're both at like 8 p.m. As well. That's called like the bump race, I think. They're all listed on that endurancenation.us/Zwift page. But
Okay.
anyone, like when you're in the ride, you get the kit, and when you exit the ride, you're in the kit, and then you'd have to like, click something to get out of it. So you're kind of stuck. So
Okay. Okay.
I always see people riding around. I'm like, hey, who's that on the team? And it's just some person who did our ride and
Yeah.
probably hasn't figured out how to take it off yet.
I know.
Yeah.
True. I've seen other people with their name, and then next to their name they'll say Endurance Nation, and I'm like, well, but hi, bye, and they go on by. I'm like, okay.
And then they go by.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, people will see it. Like if they see the name, they'll definitely say something. So, or if you're in the kit. So either way, yeah, that'd be great to get you in the kit and do that. Yeah.
Fabulous. I'll work
Super
on
fun.
that. I'll figure that out.
Yeah, it's awesome. All you have to do is finish the ride. Like on the the Sunday night and the Monday night, which is like, dinner time for you, I guess. It's only like it's like TikTok. I think it's like one lap of TikTok or something. So it's a short ride. Some people will just race really hard, but all you have to do is finish. So
Okay.
you get it.
Easy.
So
I can do that. I
yes,
can figure that out.
excellent. We'll get you in the kit. I love
Fabulous.
it.
Well, great.
Awesome.
What else? What else is going on?
Oh my goodness. I mentioned earlier, we're kind of mapping out some of those early season virtual events to kind of keep people motivated, and then hopefully do
Yeah.
some, actual real world camps and stuff later in the year. That's a big,
Do
that's
you
a
have
big
many?
production.
Do you have many people racing Chattanooga that you know of?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Tulsa. I'm like right now, everyone's focused on Tulsa. I'm fingers crossed it's on the line for happening.
Uh,
I want to say Chattanooga typically has like 8 to 10 people racing, and I'm sure I've definitely seen the roadmaps come across my desk. I'd have to go back and look, but we definitely have people doing it. It's just a great event, and I think those late season events are going to prove to be really popular,
okay.
as people are just like, I'm not going to mess. If I have a choice, I'm just going to go to the late season event
Yeah.
versus making it be earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there'll be a thread for it, and we'll put all the names in there and stuff like that. So we'll get you organized as we get closer. Yeah.
Not a problem. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
like the new format, whatever the new
Oh, thank you.
website, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not really a website, but then it is, or it's whatever's behind
It's
it.
a hybrid.
Yeah.
Yes, it was definitely a long time coming, but it's easy to use, and they eventually, I mean, they've got behind the scenes, they've got an app for it that's in development, that I get to use. So the website is actually like a community in a website, kind of like you and I are right now. Like in the picture here on me, you're on top. So like you would
Yeah.
be the website, and I'm the community down here. But you can also, a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on the website. They spend time talking. So, we'll have an app for that as well. So that'll make it a lot easier to stay in touch and, share out all the stuff we need. So like, for example, you could take a picture of your bike on your phone and put that in the space, because we can
Yeah.
all get jealous about your bike,
I know.
you know?
I'm still nervous about it, but yeah, I gotta get the legs together to push it.
Okay. Oh, we'll get there. Don't worry about it. That thing pedals itself, I think, right? Come on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I put that engine back in it, yeah. Electric.
I
Oh,
know, right?
bad. Did I say that out loud?
Whoa, yikes. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
I'll
Just
delete
kidding.
it. No one will know. You're
Thank you.
safe.
Thanks.
Awesome.
I don't have many other questions. Just
Oh, no worry about it.
I just didn't understand how to put things together. Let's say I did move forward with the Chattanooga. I'll talk to Texas
Right.
and see if they'll allow me to transfer it yet again.
Hmm.
And then if not, what the heck? You just lose a race. Everybody else lost races, so
I
it's
know. It's not, I don't think it's worth it. Just,
yeah,
again, just not rolling the dice with the health, and also, you may be over with the COVID thing, but and
Yeah.
you walk away, knock on wood, completely okay, except for missing the time. But then we cram the training in, and then you've got like an Achilles issue or a
Right.
back, and it's like, that's just not, to me, it's just not worth it. The stakes aren't,
Yeah.
um, it's not worth it. So yeah.
Okay. So
All
going
right.
forward, what I'll do is go ahead and talk to Chattanooga, talk to Texas, see about
Yeah.
transferring it, or just go ahead and buy Chattanooga, get
Yeah.
involved with that. Then I'll talk with you guys on trying to put together a plan going forward for
Yeah.
body comp and best bike camp. Is
And
that
then the best bike camp. Yep. We can kind of figure out how the best way to integrate that. And then we can start, roll from that into a real season. That'd be great.
yeah? And then you would start the real season for your Kona and for Chattanooga, which are roughly about a week apart.
Yeah.
Um, in April, you would.
Yeah. Early season, April. Yeah. That's a good marker for us to say, it's time to start, making sure we're getting our ducks lined up and we're good. So that by the time we get to July, we can, really sort of hit that training
Okay.
um, in a healthy way. Yeah. So right now I'm doing a lot of Zwifting. I'm, run frequency. I'm having fun. I'm not being too serious about it. I'm trying to get lots of other things done, but the fitness is there. So I'm only a couple, weeks away from being able to say, okay, yep, I can, give me 3 weeks and I'll be ready to go. I can go. So I think
Okay.
just keeping that, staying loose and keeping healthy, I think is really important right now. So,
Okay. Well,
all right.
I appreciate the time.
Oh, of
This
course. No, please. Thank you for coming and thank you for opening up about your season. So great
was
to talk about all the pieces of the puzzle. I love putting it all together. Every puzzle to solve is super fun. So I
yeah.
look forward to working with you as well.
Thank you. I
All
appreciate
right.
it. And
You're
Matt
welcome.
and Brenda as well, and everybody. Yeah.
Of course. Of course. No worries. And say hi to your lesser
Better.
half for
Yeah.
me.
Caesar. All hail Caesar.
Yes, indeed. Hail Caesar. And yeah, I'll look forward to hearing your message and letting me know what goes on between Texas and Chattanooga, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
You're welcome. Have
And
a
I'll
great night.
you too. Take care.
Take care. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.